Hello, my name is Caroline Lenette. We are joining you from the colonised and unceded lands of the Gadigal and Bedegal peoples on whose country we live, work and play. The work we discussed today took place on colonised country, and as uninvited guests on these lands, we pay our respects to elders past and present and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded.
Thanks for that acknowledgement, Caroline. I'm Priya Vaughan from the Black Dog Institute at UNSW.
And I'm Professor Katherine Boydell, also from Black Dog Institute. And we're really excited to share some of our reflections about the story completion method and how we might implement the principles of cultural safety when using it. These reflections arose when we used story completion in 2020 to learn about people's perceptions of COVID-19 amidst Australia's various lockdowns.
Katherine, Caroline, I'm wondering why you chose to use story completion in this project, and if you could just give us a bit of a background about what that actually is.
Yes, story completion is the process of creating a short story in response to a prompt, which is called a stem or cue. And the prompt is usually the start of a story, and it consists of a sentence or a few lines.
So this method emerged from psychology and psychotherapy traditions. It's now used across several disciplines, such as disability studies and education.
And it's been used to explore patterns of social meaning, including people's assumptions, worldviews, attitudes, cultural norms, and so forth.
So we wanted to use story completion to capture the experiences of people living in Australia in 2020, because this approach can be creative and exploratory for participants. And at the same time, it can be a powerful tool to better understand social experiences and social meaning making.
The stem that we used in our project was an 11 p.m. phone call is received from Ali's elderly parents who are distressed due to COVID-19. What happens next? And it was really interesting to receive responses to this cue and to track things like, how quickly COVID-specific words had entered our vocabulary.
Yes, we received some incredibly evocative stories about COVID.
So we also collected some basic demographic data from our participants to give us some context when we analysed the stories. But we started to realise that we had a relatively monocultural participant group.
Yeah, and it really prompted us to think more deeply about why we weren't reaching a more diverse cohort of people, especially because storytelling traditions are really important across the world.
But we found that existing studies didn't really address how to ensure a method originating from Western, white psychology could be safely applied in other contexts. So we drew on the work from decolonial scholars such as Archibald Kumkum-Ziem and Linda Tuiwai-Smith, and we devised 3 strategies to address this gap.
And the first strategy is to embrace messy texts. And messy texts are a concept I'm sure many qualitative researchers are familiar with, an acknowledgement that data sets don't fit into neat, predetermined methods of analysis. Embracing messy text means having responsive and innovative, messy methodologies. In story completion, messy methodologists might begin a project by engaging with diverse storytelling traditions from, for example, First Nations, African, or Pacific cultures to design the prompting story stem. They might also invite their participants to use different media rather than just words to respond to stems, such as drawings, photographs, or collages. Or another option might be integrating simple story fragments, a term we propose to replace story stem with its linear narrative implications at any point of the story, so that storytellers might choose to build the narrative sequence in ways that make sense to them and reflect culturally prescribed storytelling protocols.
And the second strategy we identified is to co-create story fragments or stems with collaborators from communities that you want to work with. So collaboratively co-creating fragments can better reflect narrative norms that are relevant to the target group and support the development of new research paradigms. And our third strategy is all about recruitment.
Yes, so efforts to ensure that methods are used in culturally safe ways just won't work if we overlook the recruitment strategy. A co-research model to engage with community representatives or peer organisations can yield a more targeted recruitment process to increase culturally grounded perspectives in data collection.
And we're really keen to expand and experiment with these strategies to address the imbalance of decontextualized research approaches that can lead to culturally unsafe practices. So to end this presentation, we'd like to invite you to contribute your own story fragment via the link on your screen.